To BBC Radio Scotland, the time is 6:10. This is Newsdrive tonight with Laura Maxwell. So let's head straight back to Westminster, where MPs have been meeting for the first time since yesterday's Supreme Court judgment. There have been angry scenes throughout the day, and we're still waiting for Prime Minister Boris Johnson to arrive in the House. He hasn't yet got to his feet to speak. We're hearing that might not happen until 7 o'clock this evening. Let's go to College Green now, though, and the political journalists Jennifer McKiernan and Nick Jones. Evening to both of you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If he does arrive, we'll let you know and we'll break into it. But in the meantime, reflections on the Attorney General Geoffrey Cox's appearance today. He was first out for the government.
Well, there's no doubt that he has been winding up Conservative MPs, getting them geared up in their demands for a general election. And one heard it time and again. This has certainly been reflected in what Conservative Brexiteers have been saying all afternoon, that, yes, it's time for an election. And you can almost sense what it's going to be. It's going to be the people versus Parliament. It's going to be the Conservatives standing up for the 17.4 million people who voted leave. So that's certainly what they're teasing at the moment, but whether or not we will see the Prime Minister back that in his statement, who knows?
Jennifer, is this what it's going to be about now? The government will tough out the Supreme Court ruling and sort of divert attention away with calls for a general election?
Yeah, I think so. They're driving that divide deeper and deeper. We saw absolutely riotous scenes earlier today when Geoffrey Cox was saying that this was a dead parliament with no moral authority. Absolutely enraged opposition MPs, obviously. There's no, because Boris Johnson is so stuck, he's lost his majority, he actually has very few choices left to him. The opposition parties are dead set on not allowing any kind of vote of no confidence before the Halloween deadline, before we definitely get this Ben Act through so that we can't have a no-deal Brexit. That they're just winding each other up so they can get on good form for a general election and really drive home that message.
Well, Geoffrey Cox was talking about legislating for an election via a one-line bill which would only require a simple majority. He mentioned it could come today. He suggested that, this suggests it's not just an academic point. But what would be the point of that? They've already had 2 votes, Nick.
Well, this would be the 3rd attempt, and it would be another demonstration of how the Conservatives are trying to stand up for the people who voted for leave. That seems to be the one thing that they're confident about. The Conservatives, and one has to say that a lot of the opinion poll findings are suggesting and confirming this, that the Conservatives would do well fighting that kind of general election. So clearly this, although, as you rightly say, would seem to be defeated, because there's no way that the opposition parties, certainly from what they're saying so far, are going to allow Boris Johnson the possibility of squeaking through a no deal by October the 31st. And they are absolutely adamant that there won't be a date for a general election until there is an extension in place until January the 31st, 2020, for a further 3 months, to ensure that there can be no deal. So it's a real trial of strength now between this sort of opposition alliance, if you like, and the government.
Jennifer, I'm a bit confused as to how much the opposition parties actually agree on. They agree they don't want Boris Johnson. They agree that they don't want a general election. But in terms of vote of no confidence, general election, people's referendum, they don't seem to be in agreement about much else. Where are they all?
I think we can fairly safely say that that the opposition parties will not go for a vote of no confidence until after that, until the start of November, let's say. And then what we're looking for...
Are they even agreed on a vote of no confidence, or whether it should be a vote of no confidence, or whether it should be a general election, or what that vote should be on?
There is still that possibility, a slim possibility, I'd say, of a general election before then. And in that case, we'd be looking at a government of unity. And Margaret Beckett's name has been put forward as somebody who'd be willing to accept that mantle, given that the Lib Dems are absolutely adamant. Jo Swinson is adamant that she doesn't want to see Jeremy Corbyn in that role. Obviously, other names we've heard have been Ken Clarke, and Harriet Harman as well was mooted at one point, but I think she's now set her sights on the Speaker. And becoming the new Speaker, so that seems, So Margaret Beckett's the latest name in the frame. But again, it doesn't seem that likely. I do think we're looking here at Boris Johnson being pushed into having to do one of two things: either accepting some kind of Theresa May-like deal with a sort of all-Ireland policy to get over that idea of needing a backstop, or this strange idea that they could obey the Benn Act by writing to ask for an extension to the EU at the end of October, but then writing another letter that says, "Can you please ignore the letter that we just sent you?" That still seems utterly ridiculous to me, but it is still something that's being pushed by Tory sources.
Nick, I suppose there's a danger that opposition MPs can't agree anything, and playing into Boris Johnson's tactics of people versus Parliament. They need to do something to earn their money for being back there, don't they?
That's right. I think that's the danger, and that's what they're playing on, the fact that there isn't unity among the opposition parties. For example, what the government would fear most of all would be a referendum. Now, then, if all the opposition parties could agree on a formula for that, and if they could get the support of some Conservative MPs and actually legislated for a referendum, now that would really put the frighteners on Boris Johnson. That's why he's playing this general election game. And I think you're quite right. And I think that if it comes to a general election, we will see the Conservatives exploiting still further the divisions between the Liberal Democrats and the Labour Party. So I think that's their tactic. Their tactic is these frightening tactics that we're seeing so much of, that they're going to attack and attack and attack and hope that it falls into a general election.
Let me interrupt you, because Boris Johnson isn't in Parliament yet, but Reuters, a line from Reuters has just dropped saying Prime Minister Johnson to invite opposition parties to call vote of no confidence in his government. That's coming from a Press and Journal reporter who's citing extracts of his speech, his intended speech this evening. So it sounds as if the Prime Minister is going to ask opposition parties to call for a vote of no confidence.
That's right, that he's therefore going to try to trigger that general election, because if there is a vote of no confidence, it could trigger a general election. Or, as Jennifer says, who knows, we might get a government of national unity as a result. But certainly you can see what the Conservatives' tactic is. You're quite right. I think they're trying to get over the embarrassment of the Supreme Court decision, and they're going to go on the front foot, and they're going to attack and attack and attack and hope to trigger a general election.
Nick, thank you very much indeed. Nick Jones there, and before that we heard from Jennifer McKiernan. There'll be plenty to talk about later on this evening, that's for sure.